G'day, I'm Colin Dangard, and you're on the Colin Dangard Show. Thanks for joining me here. With me today is one of the great horse ladies of all time, Tally Hutcherson. She's a real horsewoman. I've known her for about 40 years, I guess, galloping through the Malibu hills, and she often passed me, but there you go. Tally, good to have you aboard here.
Excellent. Thanks for inviting me.
So, you've had a long history with horses. What do you feel is the ingredient that lots of people miss in their relationship with horses?
I think relationship is the missing ingredient. Lots of people don't understand how horses create relationships, how they build communities, how long it takes for a horse to learn to trust, and how important leadership is to horses. So all of those things can add a lot of yummy companion time in the.
What are some things that you do to yummy up to a horse?
Well, I used to try and do too much too quickly, but I have learned to slow down and really spend time with horses doing nothing in particular. The woman I learned all of that from is a much more famous horsewoman than I am. Her name's Carolyn Resnick, and she's quite the Liberty horse trainer, and she also studied wild horses and taught me a lot about what horses yearn for.
So, horses are yearning for, as I understand what you're suggesting there, they're yearning for a relationship with us. Now, why is that? We're not a horse. They've got plenty of relationships with other horses. Why is it they seek us out?
The way I would answer that is that horses are built and hardwired for more. They would love to build bigger communities and have more community members. And while we might be different thinkers, they learn to accept and have great affection for us when we behave in a way that they understand and act like horses act instead of like predators.
So, do you feel they see us as a predator?
They can see us that way. Most people tend to do very unconsciously predatory behaviors around horses. Like, I observe people instantly wanting to grab at a horse's face or neck and pet them in places that are quite delicate, or maybe the horse has some fear or, sensitivity around. And if a person sat in a chair and didn't move towards the horse at all, it would make the horse much more friendly initially and curious about what that person was doing. And maybe they'd want to just hang out with that person instead of run away.
So, you're suggesting that people should do less to build a relationship?
That's
Just
exactly
be
what
there.
I'm suggesting. It takes a lot of effort to do less at the beginning, but you get more for it on the backside when the horse accepts you and learns to love you. Then everything that comes after that yes, that first yes, is much faster and much deeper.
But we can't, there's a relationship that horses have with each other that we can't possibly have. So how can we get in there with that?
Well, I would kindly disagree with that, because what I'm suggesting is that in the natural world, horses spend almost all their time hanging out with each other, doing nothing in particular. And it is in that one activity that the deepest bonds get formed between the horses, the bond of connecting and the glue that holds the whole group together. It's very difficult to spend time with horses doing nothing in particular, because most people want to get on the horse and ride. But that's very difficult to do with a horse that's scared or maybe fearful and doesn't like people. So that's where slowing things down and spending time creating the bond and the understanding is really important.
Have you ever had a horse that you couldn't get close to, that no matter what you tried, maybe it was a horse that came from some other place that had been abused or something, that you just didn't get through to that horse? Did you meet such a horse?
I have not. I have watched many miraculous experiences with horses who were quite abused, damaged, and had given people major injuries because of their dislikes for their behavior, that turned around and became exceptionally kind, gentle, and generous, but it did take a very long time to get there. Most people wouldn't spend that kind of time, but it was valuable time spent to see the transformation.
So, um, what's the thrill you get out of a horse? Do you get it? Is it riding the horse, or is it just being friends with the horse, or being a friend, being a mate to the horse? What's the deal? What drives you?
Well, the thrill of riding, I still am very drawn to, although I'm an older person now and not as driven to be thrilled only by riding. So I would say just standing next to a horse, sharing space, being able to watch the horses. I have one activity that I really love to do where I just sit and watch the horses for an hour. And it's kind of like in their natural pen, kind of like having an aquarium where you start to see random patterns of movement as the horses, you think at first the horses aren't doing anything, and then the longer you sit and the more you watch, the more you realize there's really a lot of activity, and it's like having this massive aquarium to stare at. Beautiful horses doing little tiny movements all day long.
Do you see some trepidations with what is happening with the horse today, compared with, say, when you were a girl and you had a horse and you started messing with horses then? How is it different today than it was then?
Well, I think the thing that makes me the very saddest is just how important horses are, but how little space we are dedicating to horses staying in our communities. Malibu was very horse-centric when I came here 40 years ago. Everybody had horses. Everybody kept horses on their property. There were miles and miles of open spaces to ride on, and I rode on the beaches every day, and now you can't do any of those things, really. The world of horses is shrinking very quickly, and the cost of property has escalated to the point where it's very unlikely that property owners would take horses and let them live there. And I think less and less people get to experience the magic. I may be one of the last people, if not the last person in this area, to take people on trail rides in Malibu. It's very difficult for me to imagine how somebody would start up a business with nothing, given the cost of what it would take to do that and the money you could make back. So I think that's sad.
Yes, it is. To my knowledge, you are the only person in Malibu who takes people out and shows them a good time as well. But you're a great teacher of the horse and a great teacher of the people around horses. I've seen you at work, and it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it is. The horse seems to be getting pushed aside in some areas, but in other areas, it's coming on stronger, like therapeutic horses. That seems to be a big deal today. It seems to be growing. Have you had some experience with that, of people who have troubles and you get them with a horse and they improve?
Yes, I was the first person in this area to be certified and to offer equine therapy, and I agree with you that it is getting more popular. The difficulty, though, in its popularity is horses are further and further away from densely populated areas where people have easy access. So you've got millions of people living in Los Angeles. In order to experience equine therapy, they have to drive over an hour from their neighborhoods to go to a place that has horses. And, for the millions of people who might be interested, there might be a few dozen places that offer equine therapy. That's
Wow.
not a high, you know, high number of people that are able to offer those activities.
Have you seen? Have you had cases in your own experience where you've had somebody who's really having a difficult time with life, and you get them with a horse, and you see change? Have you seen that? Have you experienced that with some of your clients or any of them?
I have seen some pretty miraculous things. I remember one person very clearly. It was an unusual day because usually I work with small groups of people, of 2 to 8 people at a time. And this particular facility only had one person who wanted to come and do something with the horses. So at first it was very challenging because I had to focus all of my attention on one person. And this particular person was dealing with some obvious medication issues. They were heavily sedated and, kind of half sleeping. And so it was difficult to engage them. But the longer we spent together, the more they kind of woke up and got interested in what was happening. And I was working on helping this individual figure out how to get the horse moving around a round pen. And he was successful very quickly at getting the horse to repeat the pattern of one continuous circuit all the way around. And he was able to do it 3 times. And there was a big celebration and a huge smile on his face at the end. And this was somebody who I would say was very clinically depressed and had all of the affects of a very depressed person. And after the hour that we spent together, I started crying. And he looked at me and said, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, you can't imagine how much you've transformed and changed in just an hour. But if you could see what I just saw, and you could take that into the world and repeat it anytime you wanted that kind of transformation," I said, "Sky's the limit, what you could do and create in your life." It was really an amazing thing to see somebody who was so unhappy in a moment of such joy. So that would be my miracle.
What is the what's the element or character of the horse that enables humans to connect in such a way, in such a dramatic way as you're describing? How are they? What's the connection between us and them that makes that possible?
That's an excellent question. There is some research and some studies that people are doing to measure energy fields around living animals. And I believe, I don't know what the specific study is, but I believe there have been several studies. One is called Heart Math, and another one is about the, I guess it's a kinetic energy study. And horses vibrate at a very high level of consciousness. So just standing in the presence of their energy tends to bring people's energy up. In 20 minutes, people can be very visibly transformed. It also, I've noticed, returns people to a place of lost innocence where they connect with childhood memories and happier memories than maybe what they're having in their adult years. And it's just something I've witnessed thousands and thousands of times. I don't even think about it anymore. I just know that putting people close to horses makes people immediately happier.
The horse is unique in that way, and I wonder about it. Our bodies obviously and clearly run on electricity. And we have an electrical field that they say is 5 or 6 feet around us, but a horse has one that's said to be 12 feet around. So if you're within that 12 feet, your energy field is engaging with the horse's energy field.
We're speaking the same language now.
Yeah, I've felt that many times, and I've seen you approach a horse, and I kind of do something similar. I don't just walk up to the horse. I want to feel the energy, and I want him to feel my energy, and then you approach the horse, which is a slow process. I think it always reminds me of going to a bar and you look over there and there's a beautiful girl. Well, how are you going to approach? Well, you could just barrel up and
Be scary.
throw down your wallet and say, here, buy what you want, or you could go up and say, you got pretty hair or something.
Yeah.
You
Connect in some meaningful way.
act in a meaningful way, and I think the horse is the same thing. They kind of have to be, in my view, they've got to be romanced as well. You can't.
And they have to give permission. They really have to be able to have that. What's the word I'm searching for? Like they
open,
yeah,
so to speak.
but they have this sovereignty, I guess. They own their bodies. They're not, they have a mind and a body, and that's theirs. They give permission to be part of whatever's happening.
Yeah. I noticed that you just have to treat them not cautiously, but they tell you when you're stepping in their way, so to speak. If you're going too fast, they back up, or they do something, or the tail goes in a circle. There's about 10 things happen. The feet start moving around a lot, and you can look at all these things, and the head comes up instead of dropping. And there's about 10 things that can go wrong, but there's 10 things that go right if your approach is correct.
Well, that's what makes Liberty work so fascinating. If you don't approach the horse and you wait for the horse to approach you, that's different than if you have the horse attached to you in some way with a rope, or the horse is fenced in, and you keep crossing that invisible line into their territory without their permission. So, I'm fascinated by the fact that if I'm willing to give an endless amount of time, one of my favorite teachers once said, if you act like you only have 15 minutes to do something, it will take all day. But if you act like you have all day, it usually takes less than 15 minutes. And I have changed my energy to understand that I need to not bring that urgency to the horse, that they have to do something for me when I say it needs to be done. If I give that up and I say to the horse, oh, you need a little more time, no problem. Pretty soon the horse is much more interested in, well, what should we do together? And then we're doing it. Works every time.
Yeah. Yes, I'd agree with that. That's that's very sound advice there. The horse really wants to be our friend. That's what I feel. They're somehow connected to us from a long, long time ago. But
You asked me why horses mean so much to me. I think it's in my DNA. I think there's a genetic component to my passion and my enthusiasm for horses. I was born loving horses. My first memories are horse crazy girl.
There's exactly mine as well. My father was, he couldn't stand horses, and and so I just wanted to do nothing else except ride horses, and he couldn't understand any of that. It was just, so that was a point of great conflict. But I wanted horses, and he wanted nothing to do with horses. He just thought they were dumb and stupid and everything they're not. And I says, no, they're not that at all. And I said, the Queen of England, who he admired a lot, I said, she rides horses, what about that?
Yeah.
He says, yeah, but she just rides in the parade, and then she goes back, so she doesn't hang out in the barn. And I says, well, I don't know if she does or doesn't. Maybe she does.
I think your dad was wrong about that. I think she spent a lot of time in the barn.
I think so too.
That's a great story.
Yeah, because when she rode, and she rode in very challenging circumstances for a horse. But if you watch her riding,
she's very skilled.
She was very highly skilled, but she was brought up fox hunting, and to do that you have to be highly skilled. So I guess that's where she learned it from, fox hunting. But what do you think about? Do you have some concerns about how modern horses are being treated today? What do you see? Do you see any signposts or problems?
A lot of people ask me about horse racing, and I love the beauty of horse racing and horses running, I think is fantastic. I would say my problem with a lot of how horses are treated have to do with the financial side of it. People don't make long-term plans for competitive horses or horses that are in that business of horse racing. When they become unusable, they get discarded, and when they're discarded, they end up in very bad places. And while not all of them end up in those bad places, it's certainly a very big problem that so many young horses get injured. I do have a problem with how they report on horse racing problems. They often talk about how many horses died in racetracks, but it isn't a natural death. So I think that would be helpful and useful for people to know the truth, that these horses are injured. It's an injury that they can't recover from, and they are euthanized. And that these are 2- and 3-year-old horses that are being euthanized. And the last thing I think that I would say about horse racing is the breeding of horse racing has really changed in the last 30 years, as well as the track maintenance. So you have these bigger, faster, bigger muscled horses with lighter bones running younger on tracks that are not necessarily very forgiving, and bones are breaking, and horses with broken bones are very difficult to bring back into service. So they are, the cost of the repairs and the surgeries and all the care afterwards just makes it prohibitive. So when they talk about deaths on racetracks, they're not talking about, a heart exploding or a horse dying of old age. They're talking about young horses, 2- and 3-year-old horses that are, being sort of put down, and that's very sad.
Well, I've had a lot of horses, like you have had a lot of horses, and I just have never ridden a horse hard until they're like 4 or 5. I might train them a little bit, light riding, but to see a 2-year-old galloping around a track, I think that's inviting trouble because the bones are not yet properly formed.
The bones, the joints, all of that hasn't really had a chance to set in and be as strong as it can be. You're right.
So I myself would like to see that there's some law or rule. I hate laws and rules, of course, but I think for the safety of horses, they should have an age when they can run and an age when they can't run. I think 2 years is too young, 3 years is a bit young, but I think 4, that seems to me to be a good year to start working hard.
Don't you think there's a financial reason why they push them so young, so fast to get them on the track?
Yeah,
They have,
because they
less
cost
upfront costs.
yeah,
And,
they cost $5,000 a month to keep, just to
they're
feed.
saving a lot of money by just pumping them out there and running them at a younger age.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's finances as well, but it's not as bad as some other sports. I think rodeo has to be really. I never can get my head around rodeo. They tie up, they strap up a horse and make it uncomfortable, and then see if they can ride it. I think that's one of the more cruel things.
Well, over the years, people's appetites for those sports have really changed. In Spain, they have basically, reduced bullfighting to not being as popular, and they've taken that out of the culture. And I'm sure rodeo is going in that direction because that's what happens. People lose their taste for watching those kind of entertaining things, or they don't find it entertaining anymore.
Well, that's kind of a good thing, isn't it? That people are finally getting to where they say, well, we just shouldn't be doing this anymore because it's cruel for animals. But however, at the same time, you think, well, is the animal missing out here? Is he not getting a chance to show how good he is, or should he be showing us how good he is, or what's the point after a while? Do we want a horse that does tricks and gallops hard, or don't we? And is it cruel to ask a horse to be more than what they are naturally?
A lot of people ask me just basically if horses should even be ridden. And that is something I have really put a lot of thought into because of the animal rights movement and people's appetites changing. The way that I think about it is the relationship I have with my horses, the way my horses live their lives. It is a mutually decided experience. The horse is just so generous and wants to be cared for. And the other side of it is the work that I offer offers the horse in captivity something to look forward to that they don't have in their, home space. So it's more of an adventure when I come and take them out and we go trekking together. Without that relationship, we have basically taken away the whole habitat that horses would live on. And if you took all the horses that people own and just turned them loose, they'd all starve to death. There's no other possibility for them than this coexistence between people who want to buy food and house them and the horse that needs to eat and have safe housing every day. So, my way of viewing it is horses have adopted and they've evolved to have this real desire for human relationship because we offer a much better outcome for them than if they remained wild. Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, I have, and I grew up with what we call in Australia brumbies.
Brumbies.
There was thousands of brumbies, and we chased them all the time, and got the good-looking ones and sold them to impoverished tobacco farmers, and so had to pull tobacco out of fields, and a lot of them were ridden, and that was a major way of moving cattle in those days, was on a horse. But then the helicopters came, and they could move 1,000 head a lot easier than 15 men on horses, and taking them 6 months. But the horses got to where they were going fat and happy, whereas with the choppers, they're not necessarily so. But it seems to be a much easier life for the horse today than it's ever has been. However, when you consider how hard horses were ridden when I was a kid in the bush, God damn, it was just unbelievable how hard we rode those horses. They'd fall over and you'd just get another one.
They live twice their lifespan, domestic and in captivity, than they do in the wild. So
Correct.
we do offer them a great life extension for the trade-off of being companions and allowing us to ride them.
The problem, it's a very good thought, but the problem is the cost of keeping a horse. You and I could both own very expensive cars if we were not feeding horses, but I couldn't get the same thrill out of a car as I get out of a horse. But that's just me, I guess. This morning I was up at 5:30, sat on my horse and went through the Malibu Hills, which is just spectacular as the sun's coming up. I rode with Dr. Ed Wagner, and we have such a good time.
Riders of the Purple Sage.
Yes, right. It seems so. It always amazes me that I always got a great kick out of sitting on the horse when I was 2 and 3. And here I am. I'm 82, and I still get the same thrill.
Amazing.
Perhaps more so.
Yeah.
Than I did then, because now I appreciate it a lot more, and I've become a lot more sensitive to the horse. I think that living with them is totally different to having a horse that you go and visit in a barn on the weekend or something. You don't get a relationship going with them. I think it's same with people. Unless you're living with somebody, you don't really know them that well. But if you're living with them, you get to know them a lot. And I think the horses are the same. They all have distinct personalities. That's the thing that I find.
Such uniqueness.
Each one of them is different. They're not just horses.
Colin, if I say this sentence, horses are excellent, beautiful, powerful, and free, how would you say that sentence?
Horses are powerful and free. I don't know.
What adjectives would you use as descriptors for horses?
Okay, I'd say the way I describe a horse is that a horse has a spirit that when you're on a horse, you grow 5 times bigger mentally and physically, and you become a warrior. You become that magical. You go to that magical place where people have gone for the 5 million years we've been riding horses.
So intuitively, you finished the sentence the way I was going to describe it to you, is horses are, and you put the words in. So for me, it's horses are excellent, abundant, powerful, and free. And when I'm with one or sitting on one, I become all those things.
Correct.
So even without knowing the end of the sentence, how I would say it, you come up with your own version of that very same thought, because you understand they elevate us. They make us more just by being with them.
When I'm on a horse, I might have started off thinking, oh well, I've got to think about this bill is not being paid, or the mortgage is not being paid, or something. But I get on a horse and I don't think of any of that.
No, you're in the present moment. That's the
You're
only
right
thing.
there, and it's a great place to be. And I'm always doing funny little experiments riding along, and I'll look over there, and I'll look back at the horse, and I'll look over there, and I'll visualize what I'm seeing there, a rock with a bunch of moss on it, and I'll visualize it, and I'll look back at the horse and see if they look. And at least half the time, they will look.
Yep.
Not all the time, but half the time. It's like a transmission. And I used to steeplechase, and I always got that feeling, steeplechasing, where you gallop along and you're going as fast as you can, and you got jumps, and you jump and jumps, and 3 miles and 36 jumps, and you go, wow. If you start thinking about it, you just...
I never had a taste for that kind of danger.
But it's insane. It's insanely dangerous. Lots of people get killed doing it. But if you don't think of the danger, and you just think, well, you're on the horse,
Yeah.
and you relax, and the horse is doing the job. He's the one doing the jumps. You're not doing the jumps. And you don't look at the jump. You don't look at that jump. You look at that jump over there. And then he's looking at that jump too, because he knows this one's already done. Boom, we've done that one. So
Yeah.
it's a mind game. If you start, of course, I have trepidations, and I can't say I ever get fearful, but I have certainly had moments where I thought, wow, that was close. I've been taken to hospital 3 times. I've been knocked out about 9 times. I think that's part of my problem today, is my too many concussions. I split 3 helmets.
Ay, ay, ay.
So I've had
I always fall on my butt, so I've never needed a helmet.
I always fall on my head.
There's no way I can protect that part of my body sufficiently to keep me out of the hospital.
Well, what's the... well, I think we both ride the horse for the same reason, that when you're aboard a horse...
Do you feel four-legged?
Yes, I do, in a way.
I've sat on so many horses for so many hours. The minute I get off the ground, I become four-legged.
Well,
I forget about everything except front feet, back feet, right feet, left feet, and I can go anywhere I want to go, one step at a time.
yeah. Well, I can't say I get that feeling, but I do get the feeling when I'm on a horse that I go to another place. It's a whole another place. It's not anywhere else. I feel like an extension of the horse, and I try to get into their mind as best I can, and I try to have windows open for me and windows open for him, and keep doing little experiments and to see if he's listening or not listening. And amazingly, they listen more than they don't, because when you're doing something perilous with a horse, like dropping off some cliff or other,
Oh,
well,
that's not something I would enjoy doing. That's why we don't ride together, Colin. That's that's it in a nutshell. I'm not going anywhere near the cliff.
I don't know. I like cliffs, but the
I
horses.
heard that about you.
Yeah, but the horses look at it and they're very. They don't want to fall either. They got 4 legs. We only have 2, so they've got a lot of advantage to us. But I get the feeling that they want to serve us. I just get that feeling all the
That's
time.
what I was trying to say about the fact that we have so many horses that are being ridden right now. There is a part of me that believes they have consciously evolved and chosen that relationship as a survival mechanism. There are plants that evolve to be more popular with humans, and we take the plants and we plant them everywhere and they become globally popular. And horses don't have the same purpose that they used to have in human, like we don't need them for transportation, but we do need them for that relationship and that special thing of inspiration that they give us.
Well, that is what I like to share with people. They say to me, "Why do you ride a horse?" And I says, "Because it empowers me. I'm on a horse and I feel 10 times bigger than I really am. I feel I'm a lot more connected to the earth than I otherwise would be. I am I'm doing a dance that's pretty unique. I don't want to step on his toes, and he doesn't want to step on my toes. So we handle each other with grace and dignity, and I think that's just the extraordinary thing about a horse. You can dance with a lady in my case, and that's always wonderful when the steps are right and the rhythm's right, and it's so beautiful and the music's good. Well, that's the same with the horse, isn't it? If you're in step with the horse and you're riding the horse and it's a rhythm and you're feeling the horse, it's the same thing. It's a dance. It's
Colin, in this time, in this day and age, it doesn't matter who you dance with. You
yes,
can dance with anybody.
yeah.
Doesn't have to be a girl.
No, that's for
Be
sure.
a horse, a boy, a dog. You can dance with whoever you want to.
Well, that's what I do with my horse. I feel I'm dancing all the time, and it's. I just love getting my head inside their head as much as I can, and just feeling it. And you can feel that energy. And you walk away from the horse, and the energy gets less if you can gauge it. And then you get out of it, the energy's not there at all. But you get in that energy field, and they're all over you. Wow,
Yeah.
what do you got? And
Don't you find that it's really seductive to feel the willingness of their size, but the way that they'll give you permission to go
Correct.
places together? It
Yeah.
doesn't take very much. Like I just look with my eyes, and all of a sudden, we're going there. And I didn't do much. And people ask me all the time, what is it you're doing? Well, I'm doing leadership. The horse is really magically drawn to my confidence when I say, hey, let's go there. And I look with my eyes, all of a sudden the feet are moving and off we go.
Yeah. Well, they trust us an awful lot, and so they should. I've never done anything bad with a horse, and I've pushed them along a bit when they wanted to get lazy or something, and I'll get after them for that.
As any good leader would.
Yes, I want them to respect my leadership, if you would, and to give me what I want, and to deliver what I know they can.
But it's what you both want, because the horse doesn't want to be the leader. They want a good leader to follow. But if you don't have good leadership to offer them, there's nothing to follow. You know, one of the reasons why I really don't care for teaching people how to ride anymore is we're living in a culture where the two most common responses I get when I tell people what to do to get the horse moving is, I don't want to hurt the horse. Well, I never said hurt the horse, but I did say kick. And if you watch horses in their culture, the way they are with each other, when a leader comes up behind another horse and says, move out of that spot, they bite them on the butt or they kick them with their feet. It's not always about being pleasant and having no opinions about things. It could be very opinionated in that moment. But once that horse moves, it's all back to eating grass and we're friends again. And leadership is like that. Sometimes you've got to hear volume to get inspired. Sometimes it takes a push. Sometimes it takes a kick. It takes whatever it takes to get that attention. And then once you get that attention, everything goes back to we're friends again.
Yes. I feel that you have to make physical contact with the horse and then make mental contact. It has to be in tandem. That they're a very old animal. They're 50 million years old. We're 5 million years old at the last count. So when we were doing what we were doing 5 million years ago, the horse was already quite a creature.
Super savvy.
Yes, he was aware of a lot of things. And then along we come, and the first thing we did was, of course, start to eat them, and then we said, wait a minute, besides eating them, we can have them haul our crap around. And so...
Wouldn't you have loved to have seen the first relationship start up between a horse and a person? Like, what was that like? The first guy or woman who decided to crawl up on top and go for a ride. Wow.
Well, actually, there's the first woman who did ride a horse was the Sarmatians in the year 300 BC, and they were in the southern steppes of Russia, and they became ferocious warriors. And
where's the movie about that?
oh, it should be written. They were something else, and they were excellent horse people, and they came from Yankistan, wherever that was, and they didn't like the way men were treating them, so they crossed over and crossed over the Val River and set up in the southern steppes of Russia, where Ukraine is today. That's where they rode.
Wow.
And they were ferocious.
I'm going to have to go to the library and look that up.
Yeah, Sarmatians. They lots of things they did. Male warriors were scared to death of them, because they wore bracelets and earrings made out of dried testicles. So they were pretty wild. And so, but they were great horse people, and they were an offshoot of the Amazon women. They were
Wow.
big women, and so they thundered around what is now Ukraine. That's amazing.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, it is indeed. What do you see of the future of the horse, Tully?
Well, I would think it's becoming more important to people, but it's less available. So the fact that it's a luxury and people's focus is financially driven, and most people are buying things that are discarded in landfill as soon as there is a scratch on it or a new one comes out. I mean, this disposable society that we are living in doesn't really cater to the concept of having a horse companion for the lifetime of the horse. It's a huge expense, one that I've happily taken on. You know, one of my favorite jokes is, how do you make $1 million with horses? Start with 2 million. Story of my life as a business person.
Yes.
You know, that's the joke on me, but I wouldn't trade my adventure. I've owned at least 100 horses in my lifetime.
Wow, that's something.
And I did want to tell you this story. People ask me all the time, what brought me to Malibu? How did you get involved with owning horses? And I was discouraged from A, owning horses, and B, having a horse business, because nobody thought it would be sensible. People wanted me to have a sensible life. But my mom said one thing to me that really stuck with me, because I used to nag her all the time for a horse. And one day when I was leaving home for good, she looked at me after I, made some angry comment about how all I ever wanted was a horse, and why didn't you ever buy me a horse? And she said, look, you're an adult now. If you really want horses in your life, make sure when you go out into the world, you make choices that take you to places where you have access to horses. And my very first year of living on my own, I was in a punk rock band living in the city of San Francisco. And after a year of living very poor and living this musical life, I realized I had made a mistake. And I corrected it by choosing to go back to school, get an education, and I only applied to schools that had horses as part of their community or as part of their program. And I stumbled on the brochure for Pepperdine, and they had that cute little stables at the back of the campus that Jim Wiley ran, and you could earn PE credits. And I didn't know anything about Malibu. I'd never been here, didn't know that there were horses in people's backyards, but that was the decision that started 40 years of horse ownership and being completely committed to horses as a lifestyle. So I'm glad I got to share that story.
Well, Tully, you've made a remarkable imprint with horse owners everywhere, both for the love of the horse and your skill, and for you knowing the horse. And I appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, Colin.
Thanks for joining our show.
Thanks for listening, everyone.